Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to our new webinar here from Commio. We're going to take some time today to do something a little different. We're going to talk about CPaaSs, communication platforms as a service, with solutions like Twilio and Plivo and SignalWire and other folks like that, and how to enhance what you're doing with those platforms, whether you're doing that with Commio or another provider that supports something called bring your own carrier. We're going to demystify that, define that, and show you a great example of how to make this work for you. So, most people who are on the call today are already using probably the market leader. It's Twilio. And maybe there's going to be a smaller portion of you that are using a different CPaaS solution out there. Like I said, maybe it's Plivo, maybe it's Nexmo, maybe it's SignalWire. And if you're joining us here today, you're probably going to want to learn about technologies that will really enhance what you're already doing. So whether it be from a quality standpoint or a support standpoint or from a pricing standpoint as well. And so ideally, you're going to come away today with an understanding of what it does. What does it take to access these additional features, reduce your costs, and those kinds of things? So, without further ado, we've got a few people on the call here today, as you can see. We've got Andy. Andy heads up all of our CPaaS integrations. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you.
He and his team are really on the front line with our customers all the time, helping them improve what they're already doing today with their CPaaS. We also have Eric here as well. He's a VP at Commio. He's been with the company from the absolute beginning at the dawn of time. Right, Eric?
Long
Wow.
time, long time.
More than
Good
a
years.
decade now. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. And ultimately, he really works one-on-one with our partners and really, figuring out, why we have really leaned into this solution because it really does bring such value to the community of people who are leveraging the amazing features and functionalities of any CPaaS solution, but then adding this bring your own carrier layer to it. So today, we're going to keep this kind of casual. I didn't start with the slide on purpose. We wanted to make this more of a conversation. And you're going to come away with an understanding of really just the very small developer lift that's associated with these things to really bring these improvements. Um, and sometimes, with Andy, I know you've done a lot of these integrations. Sometimes we say to people, you don't have to change anything that you're already doing really to really get these benefits and, how to get these great gains, from adding this bring your own carrier solution on top of things. So we're going to see Andy walk us through some of these things, see the solution side, right, one on one,
Sure.
and then the Commio side to see how that connection really bridges things together and things like that. So Eric, I want to start with you. So if you could you really define bring your own carrier? Where did this come from? And who pioneered this?
Yeah, it's great questions. So honestly, it's probably one of my favorite topics to talk about here because it's just such an overwhelming win for our partners. And it's also from a sales standpoint, it's kind of exciting because a lot of people don't even know it exists, right? It's something that as you get to a certain size on a CPaaS platform like a Twilio or Plivo or Nexmo, they start talking to you about. And we're actually just trying to educate people earlier on. So what we find is that people are actually seeing the benefits far before they get to these massive sizes and start accessing these types of tools. So, bring your own carrier. Really, we have to credit Twilio with really pioneering this. I know it came from a lot of customer feedback. We're a great strategic partner with Twilio. We've helped a lot of people out build onto the Twilio platform and other, CPaaS platforms. But, about 4 or 5 years ago, Twilio really created this and started marketing out to their large, customers, letting them know that, hey, we created a pathway for you to connect with other providers for voice and messaging and enhance our existing platform. So bring your own carrier concept was, hey, instead of it being fixed that you're only on the Twilio aggregated carriers, you actually have the ability to go out there and start leveraging some of the tools, features, functionality, support systems, pricing models of, some of the largest connectivity partners for these types of voice and messaging services, which is fantastic. And Twilio built it in seamlessly. And I think one of the things that I hope we come away with, Tim, which I just want to reiterate what you sort of already said, which is, if we're successful here today, this is not a pitch about got to use Commio plus, your current CPaaS solution like Twilio. I think what success here is educating you on what BYOC is, demystifying, and Andy's going to be a big component in that. It's sort of demystifying, is this a big dev lift? Is this complicated? Is this something that I need to really strategically plan for? You know, really demystifying and making it simple, how actually easy and simple it is. And then helping you understand the tools that you get access to that improve quality, right? That improve your control over what's going on, with your customer base and the pathways in which their traffic, as we call it, the voice and messaging traffic is going. Improving the speed to support. If you have an issue, how do we tighten that timeline down to build better customer experiences, right? And then, last but not least, especially in this day and age, we're all price conscious. So it's like, how is this going to help me improve my cost structure? Because it's a little bit of a foreign concept when you think of bring your own carrier and combining it. I think a lot of people can get confused and think, well, isn't that something that should net more, in cost, not less? And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, in the marketplace today. So I know I always give the long-winded answers, Tim, but that's a sort of high level of BYOC and what I hope people get to take away today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andy, let's turn to you because I think everybody
Sure.
really wants to hear from you. You're doing the actual integration. So is there anything that I'm missing or Eric's missing when it comes to BYOC and what about the setup requirements? Because I think everybody would love to start walking through that.
Sure, sure. There are a couple of things that I would probably add to that. One is that I would look at um, a company like Commio as an enhancement to the already great service you're getting from Twilio. I would also add that you get a certain level of transparency
Mm,
once you commit to the integration
Good
of
point.
using Commio. What you really want to have is a lot of transparency and a lot of exceptional customer success and service.
yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do is enhance that experience without putting a large dev lift on you. I'm going to show you that you can make your changes with 3 steps. And this isn't a week's worth of planning. This is a few minutes of time building into the Commio platform.
Fantastic.
Andy, I think one question I was hoping we could answer for those that are listening in or watching the recording post, hand is like, we're going to get into some of the benefits at the end, but I think, probably one of the biggest upfront things that people are concerned about is just the connectivity, right? Like,
Sure.
okay, like what is the elements that are required? Now, I know we're going to talk them through the quick process of what they do, but, from a high level, can you help us understand, like, if I'm interested in using BYOC with a Commie or another player, like, what are the things I need to prepare and do ahead of time? Do I need to
Sure.
like let my Twilio service rep know that I'm about to try to use this BYOC? Like, what does that sort of look like?
Sure. Sure. So the thing is with Commio already having the integration built in, the only thing you have to know from Twilio is on your side where you have either used their Twilio API or you're using the Twilio XML language in order to route your calls. All you have to know is 3 things. You just have to know your account ID, the number that you want to contact, and a token from my platform. That is it. You don't have to contact your Twilio sales rep. You get right onto their platform. They have actually excellent help documents to help walk you through these processes. We actually have it documented on our website as well, that on a step-by-step process where you can, like I said, I don't want to oversell the ease of use, but it really is a matter of having a Commio account and having a Twilio account and a couple of mouse clicks.
It's so right, Tim. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we both encountered customers with questions coming in on our website or in a first initial meeting with our team. And, the last is question of like, do I need to bring my CPaaS provider like Twilio? Do I need to bring them on this call? How do I,
Right.
get this stuff going? It's like, it's all automated,
It
you
is.
know, to give us a little bit of a plug here, you know, you can use other providers, and we actually would encourage you to just use a provider as an enhancement. But I think Andy nailed something that he's going to show in a little bit, which is there's actually like a pre-configuration on the
Right.
on the provider side versus your Twilio side, right? Which is all set up, ready to go and everything. Some providers might have to do a couple extra little steps over there, but in general, even with others, it should be a straightforward and relatively easy process as we go through it.
Yeah, before we jump in and show it, because again, and we know it's a quick process and would love to show you, but why, Eric, maybe you can answer this because we
Yeah.
see the leads come in and what would drive somebody who's using Twilio today to come to talk to somebody like Commio about BYOC? Like what are some of the driving factors?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think what we have to understand is that, these CPaaS solutions are great companies. They do things that are absolutely amazing. We're steering customers over to these CPaaS platforms all the time, because they offer these incredible features and functionalities like call recording, call bridging, what they call IVR functionality, just a fancy way of saying, do this when this happens, with the call and things like that, and really they do this all through APIs like Andy illustrated. So you can just API make a call. You don't have to have any sort of hardware. And that was sort of the limitation in the past was you had to have this hardware, what they used to call like a switch, in order to interact with telecommunication services in any way, shape, or form. And Twilio really, pulled that off and said, we're going to make this developer friendly. But to
Mhm.
actually answer your question, which is like, why would somebody use it? What we found is that the CPaaS platforms are absolutely excellent software platforms. They're absolutely excellent APIs. What they're not necessarily the best in industry at is the actual delivery and receipt of these, voice and messaging services. So the actual
Yeah.
connectivity out to what is the most vast network, especially in the United States alone. These are a, sort of 10,000 facilities based telecommunications companies that the CPaaS platforms are trying to interact with. And there have been some long-standing, like Commio, long-standing, communications providers that have just built up this massive network of connectivity, tools, quality assessments, and measures that really sort of dramatically improve it. So the short answer is the reason why people come to us is a couple key points. One is they're looking to improve the overall quality of the deliverability and receipt of these calls. They want to have maybe a little bit more transparency into what's going on instead of it just being something that happens in the background, kind of thing. Another key reason that they come is that they're led by their CPaaS provider to say, hey, we're kind of tapped out from a pricing standpoint. You might want to consider using BYOC to start, getting into that next level of, cost savings, that can come from a platform like this. Again,
Right.
different providers are going to provide different sort of cost structures associated with that. And probably the most important one is through these software platforms. I'm not signaling out any particular provider here or anything like that, but a lot report back that when they do have an issue related to a call or a message, that they're sort of relegated to this. I've got to open an email and it takes a while to get a response back, and I have to
Yep.
pay for that level of support.
Yep.
Um, and so when they come, directly to a Commio or other providers, all of a sudden they're getting a little bit more white glove level service. So they're taking those response times down from hours to literally minutes, right? Like, wow, I was able to resolve this issue in less than 10 minutes and my customers are incredibly happy. That's helping them with customer retention and churn rates and things like that.
Right.
I
So I think
think
Eric,
I'd probably add, oh, I'm sorry, Tim.
no, no,
No,
go
go
I
ahead.
ahead,
think,
Andy.
No, go ahead, Andy.
yeah, I think I'd probably add there that when you do an interconnect with a CPaaS like that, especially a company like Commio, and yeah, I am use Commio as the example, you get a certain level of control of
Yeah.
what your experience is when your customer sends from that CPaaS platform to another platform like mine. You're going to get that level of control. You get to see the call, you get to see where the call went and who it went out on. I think
Yeah.
Eric alluded to the fact it's something happening in the background on Twilio because to them, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the functions and features of their platform.
Yeah, I just wanted to add.
Totally. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Tim.
appreciate that. No, I just want to sort of put a fine pencil on this is that, people who are on the webinar today, it's like, look, if you're using Twilio or one of the other CPaaSs and your traffic is increased to the point where price and control and transparency become big issues. Because we know, Eric, because we've had big big companies come to us and say, "Hey, Twilio, for instance, has been fantastic, but now to get more calls per second, we don't know where the calls are going. We're having pricing issues with messaging. Can you help us?" And we're like, "Absolutely. You've reached a scale level, hundreds of dollars a month, minimum in terms of telecom costs that when you switch over to somebody like us, you can get all those things, get the support, and save potentially a lot of money." Right? That's
You
really what
know,
happens.
I hate to keep riffing on this, but
Yeah.
we just have this long-standing positive experience, with those who've been using CPaaS who move to a BYOC option.
Yeah.
And, Andy nailed it. It's like having greater control and transparency into what's going on so they can start making decisions, and say like, here's what's right for us, inside these businesses. I think, the BYOC option is not for everybody. I mean, you might be too small. It's not even worth the extra little, 10 seconds it takes to do this kind of stuff. But, as you get to a certain point, you just have to realize we're asking a lot from a CPaaS provider to be good at everything, right? It's like, I think we can all understand that concept. Like,
Okay.
so in many cases, when they come to us, they don't realize BYOC is even an option. And instead, what they're doing is they're shopping to move to a new CPaaS.
Yeah.
Like, can this CPaaS solve everything? And what they find is that they're like, okay, if I go here, I lose this feature, I gain this feature. If I go here, I lose this feature and I gain this feature, and I improve my price, or I don't improve my, And so it feels like there's no good solution. But the big elephant in the room is, hey, I've got to rip out everything I've done,
Yeah.
and replace it with this entirely new CPaaS, which looks similar, but I still have to redevelop everything into my APIs, create all the if this and that logic and things like that. And when you consider BYOC, whether it's with Commio or anybody else, we're not talking about a rip and replace option. What we're talking about is, as Andy described, which is an enhancement. It's fast, requires no real development effort, associated to it. Quick and easy to test. Quick and easy to, let's say you went with a provider, connected into your CPaaS, and you didn't like them. It's easy to turn it on and turn it off, right? So it gives you these available options, in a world where a lot of people feel like they're forced to make these big decisions about, developing into a new platform.
Yep. Yep. Well, Andy,
Yeah,
let's unveil the solution here. So I'm going to go ahead and share and show people, walk them through step by step how easy this is to do,
sure.
and all the benefits that they can get here.
So on this first slide, and we're not going to beat you to death with a slide deck, but
Yes.
on this first slide, this is the Commio portal. As you can see, I'm using the red arrow. I'm pointing from developing a trunk, because really what you're talking about is you're building a SIP trunk between my platform and Twilio. We're going to use Twilio as the example. That's the most common platform. And what you're saying is I'm going to click this Twilio button. I already have the integration going. Most of the times when you have to build a SIP trunk, you require an IP address. You require port information, things like that. We've already established that. We already have the trunk built between us, the connectivity between us and Twilio. Right here, you're just making a declaration. You're going to make a SIP trunk between Commio and Twilio.
Yep.
And for those who aren't familiar with these terms like SIP trunk and things like that, I mean, it's really irrelevant. That's just some legacy sort of, telecommunications talk. I think what Andy, what I love about what he just pointed out is step one in this process is click a pre-configured button. It basically says like, hey, I'm about to start using Twilio. I'm going to select the Twilio option here. We got a few other CPaaSs listed in here. We have other options as well, but you click the button and it just works, right? As far as like what you need to do on step one configuration on our side. Is that fair to say, Andy?
That is correct. And what you're doing, and remember, you're establishing a connection here for outbound traffic that is coming from Twilio to Commio.
There you go. And again, I think the other important thing too, Andy, right at the top is you can see our account ID is 11132. So kind of that's what we're going to take note of, right? We're connecting up, and this is our Commio account that we want to start passing this through. Okay.
That's
easy.
Correct.
So we click Twilio, and when we go through the process here, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we've built our trunk, and now we need to build a route profile. And this is where I was talking about transparency and ease of use. As you can see, we've got all these carriers on here. They're all different types of carriers, and they have very most are nationwide, but they have unique marketplace opportunities. And what it does, it gives you the ability to turn off or turn on.
Mhm.
You control the carrier. You're never going to hear from our knock that we had to make a change to an upstream carrier. We're going to tell you what carrier that we had to make a change to if there was an issue. So we put on onboard tools so you can troubleshoot these. Um, we don't have time to go through all those today, but just know they exist. If there is a carrier on here you don't want to use, you don't have to use them. But this is what becomes available to you from your interconnection.
Yeah, we go
Yeah.
from a black box, right, Eric? So Twilio is a bit of a black box. We know they're routing our calls. We don't know who the carriers are. We can't see them. But here we are in Commio. We have choices. We can actually literally see which carriers are handling our calls.
Yeah. So, depending on who want to connect in with BYOC, really nobody's going to show you a screen like this, right?
That's correct.
So our team what we do is in your initial setup, we basically just learn about your business, right? So you're like, okay, you built a platform that helps, dentists and doctors, and you're making calls and sending messages, okay? And they will, in your first setup, when we click the Twilio button, we actually do this with you. It takes just a second, and we show you the transparent model of all of the interconnectivity partners. It's a bit of us puffing our chest because we're connected to more providers than any of our competitors are, which gives you more direct calling. In this case, we're looking at voice. So it gives you more direct calling, which really gives you a much higher quality, experience. And at the same time, gives you much lower cost because we're sending you directly to where your calls are destined for, right? So this is fantastic. But as Andy illustrated, you don't really do anything here. You don't have to turn anything on, turn anything off, or anything like that. But what's really important as a Commio versus maybe other connectivity partners that you might consider, or even Twilio itself, is because this is on a per customer basis. That means whenever we're working with you to strategy to change something, to fix something, whatever it might be, we're building it very specific to your account, right? And so what our partners value is, wow, I'm getting an entirely bespoke solution based on my specific needs. So this isn't a product pitch for Commio. We could spend much more time with you talking about the extent of all of our tools, and this barely scratches the surface. But it's one of our main value propositions is instead of it being just a static solution for your BYOC, we're actually going to create something completely custom for you. Okay. Sorry, guys,
That
if
is
you want
correct.
to keep going.
Yeah, so in this next, if you're using the Twilio API for, which most customers do, you can make this change. If you look at the top, what that arrow is pointing out, this is how a call is routed via Twilio's API. If you look at the marker below, the picture below, it's the single line of code that you have to change. And what it's telling you is we're going to convert this to a SIP call. We're going to send it to the Commio address. And there are only three pieces of information. You have to have a phone number to send it to. You have to have an account ID, which Tim pointed out earlier was 11132, and you have to have a token. Those are all things that you're taking right off the platform. If you skip down to the next slide, Tim, please.
Well, before we go there, if you go back to that 1 second,
Sure.
I always feel like I'm doing a little because I know we might have some people on here who are not familiar with ever looking at code, in any way. Andy, keep me honest here and make sure I'm getting it all right. So the point with this slide was we're showing number one, this is the other side of the equation. So we already did
Right.
the configuration on the provider side. It literally took us 10 seconds. We clicked a button and we clicked OK and we're done. Now over on the Twilio side, we're looking at here two examples. The first example on the top, which points to just a phone number, is initiating a call like what a customer might be doing today already without BYOC. And the
Correct.
one below that is what it would look like once we're using BYOC with a provider. And this is showing a Commio example. It might be relatively similar on a different provider. Is
Correct.
that right so far, Andy?
But yeah, so what you're doing is you're replacing the one line of Twilio code with this line of code to direct the call to the Commio platform in this example.
Yep.
Now, does the customer need to like change the SDK? Again, do we have to let Twilio know? Do we have to let Plivo know? Like, is this changing anything on that side?
You do not. You do
Okay.
not. These are things that are completely in your control. And this is where you're taking a small bit of control from the Twilio side and exposing your client, your customer base to a large amount of control and enhancement by routing it to my platform.
You
Does
need
it?
no good.
Oh, go ahead, Tim. Tim, go
No,
ahead.
I'm just
I
going to
don't
say
know.
that. So literally, if we make this change, Andy, and we make sure everything's all set up, for instance, on the Commio side, the minute we make this change and save it on the Twilio side, calls will start to route to Commio, right? It's that quick.
100%.
Yeah, it's one
That is
change.
correct.
Yeah, less than 60 seconds. Okay, sorry, Eric.
Wow. No,
Yeah,
that was my exact question. So
yeah, there you
Sure.
go.
perfect.
Awesome.
So, and just when I was talking about account ID and token information,
Yeah,
from the trunk menu, you see the little key there. This is all on one page. You've created your trunk. You generate your token, as well as up at the top, you can see your account ID. If you flip back to the previous slide real quick, Tim, please. Thank you. That's where this information is inserted. That is all you have to know in order to
right.
start routing calls to the Commio platform.
That's
Okay,
right.
so when we create on the Commio side, when we click that button and create it, it
Yep,
generates the token. At the top of the screen, we got our account ID. So we just need those two
that's it.
those two things, and we can add it in. And we're so like I know the answers to these, but I'm gonna ask the dumb questions anyway. Like, how long does it take me to do that? Like, how if I'm gonna create a Twilio account right now and I want to do this, how long should this reasonably take me to configure?
If you go from, let's just say that you're going from scratch, right from the Twilio platform, you've bought your numbers, you've done all of whatever your dev is that you're doing on that platform. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, it is 60 seconds worth of work.
Yep.
that
And
sounds
here it
like such
is.
a sales claim. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
60
it does
seconds.
sound ridiculous, but it's intentional.
Right.
And look, it's intentional for a couple of reasons. One is if Twilio routes that call to me, they know that I'm going to take care of it because they allowed us to do the integration. So they've offloaded some support there from an area that they're not 100% want to be in. They want to be in that platform. They want to be in the software business, and quite frankly, they do it pretty well.
Yep.
What they want to do is they're going to say, okay, you're sending those calls to Commio. We're good with that. We know the quality of the product. Um, you know, that's why we've made it this easy.
Yeah. And
You
here it
know,
is, right, Andy? So this is us right inside of Twilio. This is where the change is made, right?
That's correct. And I
Yep.
use this example.
wow.
It's their XML language. It's easier to read. You can, you're using all their verb information and they call it TWIML, but it's just an XML
Mhm.
language that they're using.
Yep.
And Andy, I always hear you translate it for customers. You're like, if we're looking at these three boxes, it's like, okay, before with Twilio, you just sent the phone number, but now you're sending the phone number
That's
at
correct.
your provider, and here's your authorization, your ID, and your token, and it
That's
just
correct.
works.
That is
Let me
Yep.
correct.
ask some of the tough questions. I want to
Sure.
ask some of the tough ones. I'm trying to channel my best, partner questions, that we get that I know they're worried about. So Andy, when I do this, before I was just using, my CPaaS provider, like a Twilio, Plivo, somebody like that, and now I'm using you. Is this going to cause like a delay in the call? Is it going to am I going to be having people just waiting for the ringing to happen, things like that?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, if anything, you should see an improvement there. You are on your own connection to my platform. You're experiencing the same level of success and enhancement that all of my customers are experiencing.
Today I do things like listen to tone for, like, let's say it's a voicemail. Sometimes I'm recording the call. Sometimes I need to bridge that call with another call. Be real. What are the feature functionalities that I'm going to lose by doing this?
You won't lose any of those because those are being transmitted from the Twilio platform. On my side, I'm going to transmit all your DTMF tones, which you're referring to. You're also talking about being able to hear the fax tones. If you happen to have a customer that still has a fax machine, doctor's office, lawyer's office, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, those tones are passed straight through. There's nothing's inhibited there. As soon as you pass that, it is part of the SIP protocol, and that's what we're going to operate on with Twilio.
So, Andy,
Wow.
another high level question, it's a great question, Eric, is why wouldn't everybody use this? Like, it feels like you get the best of both worlds. You get everything that Twilio has, all their features. In 60 seconds, you can get this carrier layer. I'm sorry, I keep saying it, sorry, but you save a ton of money, especially as you scale. Like, why wouldn't everybody do this?
Everybody should do this,
Hmm,
but I'm going to tell you some of the barriers. Sometimes it feels overwhelming.
hmm.
Sometimes it's like, a lot of companies use independent developers. They're not on staff, so all of a sudden
Yeah.
it becomes that kind of a discussion. And really, what I tell them when I'm in their meetings is I tell them those are valid concerns. Let me show you what's not overwhelming. Let me show you how to start. What's the old adage? How do you eat an elephant?
Yeah,
One bite at a
One
time.
bite at a time.
right.
Yep.
And that's really what we're talking about here. And
Wow.
let me help you. And test.
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to test. If you're going to take the step to do this integration, I want you to test it thoroughly. Um, so so we want to take some of the overwhelming part of it. I am not an actual AE or an AM in this company. So those guys are going to help you figure out the pricing part of it. I'm going to support the activity, and I'm going to support your development team.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Eric,
Yeah.
so I feel like maybe we've talked a lot about voice, which obviously is the foundation of this, but there's also a messaging component here. So what does it look like from a messaging standpoint? And I know this also gets into the realm of something called hosted messaging, right?
Yeah, I'm going to lean heavily on Andy for this one because his team does so many integrations, especially in the SMS part. Especially in the beginning, I felt like, a lot of CPaaS providers, people were mainly using them for messaging. So in
Right.
the beginning, so it just happened that more of those happened to be, SMS. So there's Twilio doesn't really call this part BYOC, and there's a time for when we're going to do an integration, and there's a time for when we're going to do a replacement or an extension, right?
Mm.
So when it comes to messaging, there's going to be two flavors of it here. And Andy, would it be fair to say that one of the easiest ways to start with messaging is something called hosted messaging?
That's correct. That's correct. And
Why don't we
just to
break that down before we talk about anything that might be an
Sure.
extension or replacement product? Yeah.
So hosted messaging has been a concept that's been around for a while, and there's lots of reasons to do it. But in this instance, let's just say that for whatever reason you don't want to move the number, whether
Mm.
it be toll-free number or a 10-digit number, DID. But you want to take advantage of some uh, messaging on a platform that fits more with how you do business, how you're providing customer service, how you're um, submitting things that are more ease of use. And that's where a hosted may come in. So you're going to you keep your number on Twilio, for example. We'll use them. But you want to take advantage of Commio's pricing. You want to take advantage of their support. You want to take advantage of the technical aspects of their platform. You can take and just port or move or assign. Those words are always used interchangeably. The Commio ID to the number. Voice is still on Twilio. Messaging happens over Commio. It's that simple.
So I I think that concept really throws people for a loop
It
because
does.
we have this misunderstanding that when it comes to voice and messaging, that everything's bundled together. Like, I think we're just been trained since like, cell phones or, I'm going to age myself here when we had landlines, but we kind of think of it as like it's all must be coupled together. And the truth is that the infrastructures for everything is completely different. And therefore, we don't need to couple them in any way, shape, or form. So how your calls get connected when they're outbound is a completely different infrastructure and network than when they come inbound, and which is completely different than when they are sending text messaging, right? So these services really are separate, but we all sort of have them circle around the idea of a phone number because that's what we understand, right?
That's
And so
correct.
in this concept, Andy, what I'm kind of hearing from you is this really cool feature where you can keep your phone number and service, on whatever you have it on, whether it's a CPaaS solution or something else. Maybe it's even your end user customer who's got a phone number, that they're like, hey, this is my law firm and I've been with AT&T forever. I'm not moving it. But they want to move the ability to message through another provider for a variety of reasons. And we can talk about that at the end as to why you might want to do that specifically. But the concept is pretty straightforward. It just seizes control of the messaging portion of it and just changes nothing else. I joined a customer call yesterday with the team. It was the day before, and a couple days ago. So anyway, I joined a customer call, and in their circumstance, they didn't have very much voice associated with their phone numbers. It was mostly messaging. But they didn't want to move the voice at this moment in time, and they were solely looking for an SMS solution, and they didn't understand how to do it. And they had some real fears with that. They're like, could it influence the voice? Could it change it? Does it like hurt the phone number? I don't want to move the phone number, and what we did a test with them. We said, hey, just grab another phone number on that same service you have right now, and we'll just seize control of the messaging. Andy, can we talk a little bit about timelines? Like, how long does that take? Do I need
Sure.
to reach out to the provider to ask permission? Do I need to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork in order to get it done? Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, so really what we're talking about is moving changing the numbers, net number ID or their ID, carrier ID for messaging.
Mhm.
Yep.
And it's a matter of submitting a request through our portal or our API, as well as having an LOA, a letter of authority in place that from the customer that says, yes, I want Commio to handle my messaging. It's a simple online document that you can do with our
Can
with
you also do it
our,
by
our phone.
API?
Yes, yes, you
Oh,
can
okay.
do
So
it
I can
through
do it by
API.
API or submit through the portal or a manual document.
That is
Okay.
correct. That is
Gotcha.
correct. And I'll give you another example. Here's one that we ran into not too long ago. The customer had their phone service and they upgraded their phone service and all of a sudden discovered that they can now with their system start messaging. They never messaged before. They were committed on a contract with their voice, but they wanted to
Ah,
message.
Hmm.
And we were trying, obviously we were trying to get their telecommunications business, but we were talking to them. And I said, well, what about your messaging? And the guy said, yeah, we're looking at doing that. He said, we just got this all on our system. We just got it upgraded, and now we're going to do messaging. And I said, you can do that with us. And let me tell you how to do it. And
so cool.
everything that you're committed to on the other side stays where it is. And it was really productive. And when they tested, they were a little surprised at how easy it was. So you know, what you're talking about in that case is a customer who had never messaged before, discovered they could message, and now they're messaging.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, you just have to talk to our team or talk to whoever you're working with, and just let them walk you through it to get you comfortable. Because a lot of times they look at these processes and they feel like, is this a hack? Is this like am I breaking protocols here?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear around these things. And that's probably one of
Yeah.
the biggest things we try to demystify when it comes to any of these solutions, that it's like, this is the way it's always been done. This is how it's proven. Like, you know, you're just kind of getting a peek behind the curtain at how things are really done on these services. And this is how you sort of take it to the next level. So, Tim, would it make sense? I think the next one we probably talk about is there ever a circumstance where I don't use hosted and I use you guys for the numbers and for the messaging? Would that be probably the best thing to talk about now?
Yeah, sure. Well,
Yeah.
I was gonna ask one more question before
No,
we
go
leave
ahead.
messaging behind, which is, again, I think we answered the question for voice. Why would somebody make the move? Like, what would give them the impetus to actually reach out to somebody like Commio? And, what would trigger that? I think it's the same thing for messaging. So why would somebody who's already doing messaging through Twilio say, "Hey, maybe another carrier like Commio might make sense"? What triggers
I
them
can
to
answer
make that?
that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'll take that one. I mean,
Sure.
I think you add what I'm missing here, but I don't think I know. So certainly, we've mentioned price here. That's a
Yeah,
component. It always is,
yeah,
and that's the easy, answer is like, oh, because you just can decimate your current pricing model.
Mhm.
Um, but I think really in my experience, messaging has actually been difficult for businesses for quite a while now, maybe 24 months. It's been,
Yeah,
feels like the ground is shifting under their feet. Lots of changes, not a lot of support in
yeah,
general, across CPaaS solutions. So, there's providers like Commio, and there's a handful of us out there that actually have the direct agreements, with the transmission of these services to the mobile operators. Like we have our, a counter team that works at these, locations that helps us resolve issues associated with customers' campaigns and management and things like that. So what I would say is there's a lot of people out there sort of offering, messaging services, but there's almost nobody offering, a true partner in the space. Somebody who's going to help you get streamline everything from the registration process to the management of the actual vendors. And if something were to arise, you know, to have a true advocate on your side. So what we see like for Commio, and I think, I know of at least one other provider in the space that's started to see improvement numbers is, you know, they're getting the high rate of approvals. So it's like, more campaigns are getting approved across the board because they're a better strategic partner that, if a campaign were to get flagged for whatever reason, they're actually able to resolve that issue. We've pulled customers, like, a lot of times we solve problems. So customers
yeah.
come to us because they've got a short code in the fire and it's, they're worried about losing service on it or things like that. And we're actually able to work with the carriers in order to get that resolved in a timely manner, getting those things addressed. So, Andy, I don't know if you'd add anything, but I mean, if I want to sort of put it at a high level, I would say they're really coming in for the fact that we're reducing their operational overhead associated with managing messaging campaigns because it's really annoying.
It
And
is.
then, right.
Yep.
So we're reducing that operational overhead at the time it takes you to sort of get it done. I mean, I talked to a customer just the other day who was like, "Yep, 1 in 4 rejected for no reason." And I'm like, okay, you're not going to have that result on us. The significant cost advantage associated to that, and just having a better partner in the space, somebody that you can actually communicate with directly by phone. I think those are the big reasons. We are not telling people to drop their CPaaS solution for
Mhm.
messaging. What we're talking about is enhancing it, giving you diversity associated with it, and just giving you sort of, more of the advantages that you can get by connecting to a direct connect provider like us.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add there is that as the messaging environment changed, we took the time to educate our customer success team um, in a really great way. We told them, hey, these are the changes that are going to occur. These are the things we need to know. What can you do? How can we help you make this a better experience for our customers? Because anybody will attest to the fact that it was a little rocky in the beginning when they were making that change, and we felt like it was incumbent upon us to make sure that
Yeah.
our team was educated and that they could really get in
Hmm.
there and help. And there was a lot of manual labor in the beginning on this and less automation. And now there's more automation and we've really done a good job when a customer comes to us and says, "Hey, look, we can't get this campaign through. Can you help us?" And we have advisors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and,
The
Exactly
and
right.
the irony about that, Andy, spot on, is that I feel like that same story could be told for a whole wave of customers that came to us just basically to buy phone numbers. And
yeah,
just the
Yeah.
other providers out
100%.
there, it made it so hard. And people were like, "Oh my gosh, I was trying to get a toll-free number for 6 months." Like I'm thinking of Numerica, right? One of our partners. And we're like,
Yeah.
um, our team is educated, we've got the tools, and we can get that the same day within minutes. And it blows people away that
Yeah.
education, training, support is such a lost art for some reason in telecom. And I'm so proud of what we've been able to do for our customers and continue to do. It really, that's the difference maker. So,
Well,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
For the next component, which is, and this question comes up a lot, somebody will say, well, can I just use you for messaging instead of using my CPaaS provider altogether? The easy answer is sure, absolutely. You know, um, I think what I'd like to talk about with that is more of the questions that some people on this call who maybe aren't the developers and things like that can ask their team to assess whether or not they could use us instead of their current provider. And Andy, make sure I'm getting this right exactly, which is, you know, I'll give you an example. Talk to this software platform where they were, helping salons send out appointment reminders and things like that.
yeah.
And the CEO just wasn't sure whether or not his team, how reliant they were on their current CPaaS provider for that service. In this case, they were using, I think Twilio, but and the question that he asked his team on the call, I thought is so, exact, which is help me understand, what are we using them for as far as messaging goes? And their team basically says, well, we're using them for the ability to send the message, and we're also using them for the ability to purchase phone numbers or short codes or toll-free numbers in order to send those messages. And then the follow-up question to that is, okay, but like, are they doing anything other than delivering the message and giving us a phone number? And the answer was no. So the logic is, unless they're doing something else for you, which I honestly can't even think of an example, you know, and you might be able to think of an example. I can't think of an example of when they're doing something else. That's the case when you can use an alternate provider like a Commio, because what you really at that end of the day need is an API to be able to purchase a phone number or a short code or toll free and send and receive a message, right? Andy, what am
100%.
I missing out of that conversation?
No, I think that is really right on the money. And it just adds to we want to make it simple for you.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it needs to be user friendly. It needs to be intuitive. And I believe that's what we've done.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, we've gone through our time, overtime a little
Sorry.
bit. No, it's fine. I mean, I think we all get fired up about this stuff, and it's hard. It's interesting. We're talking about a very simple 60-second change that we could talk about for an hour plus, only because of all the added
We're
benefits.
passionate,
Yeah.
Tim.
We're very passionate. Nobody can tell us otherwise. Anyway, hey, we just want to say, by the way, super thanks to everybody who tuned in today. We did record this session. We'll provide that recording. Certainly feel free to cut to the chase, get to the section where we show you how to do the integration. It's so simple. And, you got a friend in us, you got a partner, you got somebody who can walk you through the whys, the hows, the full integration, which is very super simple. We're here to solve problems. We always have been, and we just continue trying to make our solution better. We love Twilio. We love that we can interop with Twilio so easily, and we love to help people scale, save money, get more, more abilities, more transparency, more control on the messaging and the voice side. So we want to continue to innovate and continue to expand our relationship with all the CPaaS folks out there, which you can see they're all integrated in our platform. So Andy, thank you for
Maybe
your
you can
time.
create a highlight reel for them on this, Tim.
Yeah, I
The
think
short version.
I could make a 30-second TikTok out of this, no problem, which is
Perfect.
ironic. But yeah, we can. But Andy, thank you for your time today. I know you're super
Thank you.
busy. Eric, same thing. So everybody, by the way,
Awesome.
when you get this recording, reply. I get all those replies. I'll make sure Andy and Eric can answer your questions. And if you really want to have a demo, you want to look under the hood, just go to our website, commio.com, click on get a demo and get on the phone with these guys. And we're happy to talk through what you're facing and see if there's a fit. So with that, signing off from a lovely Tuesday afternoon here in Raleigh and points elsewhere. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.